Normally I would say that you can never be too old for something, but in this particular case, I might have to change my mind. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Yeah, so today Sarah J. Maas, House of Earth and Blood, the first of the Crescent City novels. Yeah, what was I thinking? What I was thinking was I would like to read something that's a bit lighter, entertaining, where I don't have to think so hard because I'm tired and yeah, I just want to have a fun time. And yeah, this book does this. On that level, I had quite a good time with this book. Still, I had a bit this feeling of, this doesn't fully vibe with me. And there's also one particular thing where I was, no, I'm not on for that. So at first I thought, will I even, I don't know, do a video? But then I thought, well, what's the alternative? No video. So I thought, right, I might as well talk about it and tell you my experience with this book. And I thought I'd do this as a non-spoiler part where I talk a bit more general about the book and what I liked about it. And then I give you in a spoiler part my more in-depth, not analysis, but thoughts about, let's say 2 particular issues that I think that book had for me. So I hadn't read Sarah J. Maas before because for me, she very, very much is a young adult author. Now, this particular book is her first attempt at writing adult fantasy. It's also billed as urban fantasy. Now, this isn't the, how shall I say, type of urban fantasy like Dresden Files, for example, where you have a city that's very gritty, dark, perhaps even corrupt. This is a different type of urban fantasy, which I only very briefly mention in my urban fantasy overview. Because I do not tend to pick up this type of book normally. This is a sub corner of urban fantasy that's very popular, I think, with some American, especially female American authors that work in this area, which can be described as supernatural romance in an urban setting. And this book, the first of the Crescent City novels, does exactly this. It fits into this genre perfectly. And as I say, I'm not much of a romance reader, but if this is a genre you really like, then you probably might like this book as well. So we are in the city of Lunathion, which is also known as the Crescent City, and I have to give it to Sarah J. Maas. She is really good at world building. This city is well realized. It is a bit too much on the glitzy side for me. So we are mostly in, let's say, very affluent upmarket parts of the city, which has partly to do with our female main character and her job, but I think it's also due to this particular style of urban fantasy. So if you like your cities a bit more on the glitzy side and are not so into the grimy, corrupt, lone wolf detective fights the city type of urban fantasy, then this is probably exactly your type of book. So we meet Bryce Quinlan. She is our female main character. The book overall is multi-POV, so we get other views as well. But her is one of the main POVs then in the book as well. She is in her, I would say, probably mid-20s, and works as, let's say, a glamorized shop assistant in an art gallery that specializes in magical and mystical artifacts. And like all the world building, the gallery setting is done very well. It has kind of like a showroom, and then it has a basement with a library with books that come alive partly and are a little bit questionable perhaps. So again, as I say, Zara J. Maas is really good at world building. She's also good at characters. Quinlan overall is not a bad character, but there is one aspect of her which I really didn't like, and I will talk about this more in the spoiler section. But overall, her characters are actually quite good. We have in this city mostly magical people for a better world. So we have fairies, we have werewolves, we have angels, and then we have Bryce. Bryce is part human, part fae. So her mother is human and her father is fae. And this mixed heritage already gives her a lower status. And she only has full citizenship because her father ensured that she will get full citizenship. I would have thought at first this is actually quite an interesting theme and an interesting topic, but well, yeah, this book is really more geared, I think, towards the romance part of the story and then the entertainment than exploring deeply into themes. And as I said, now I wasn't looking for this type of book. So this was partly okay. And I think it's a bit unfair if I would say, Zara J. Maas lost some opportunities here. She could have certainly explored this more. There are other weighty themes in this book, predominantly grief. But again, I mean, it's explored of thoughts, but nothing too deep. So the plot is relatively straightforward. We meet Bryce, and she has this friendship group. She met those people in university, and they know each other from that time. And one of her best friends is a werewolf. They're all female as well. I should perhaps mention that as well. And this female werewolf friend gets killed, and it appears like she got killed by a demon. And that is what kickstarts our plot. So this isn't a major spoiler. It's made very clear at the start that this happened. And we have then a time jump of 2 years where we meet Bryce again, totally still grief-stricken, and in the city more deaths are happening, and they're all happening in the same way as her friend was killed. And the governors of the city, which are the angels, decide that they want to team her up with Hunt. Hunt is a fallen angel. He is enslaved, so they ensure that he doesn't have his full power. And he also has been turned into this mix of torturer and executioner. Whenever the city has some dirty work to be done, people to dispose of, then he's called in and he will kill them. And we find out as well why he actually is okay with this. Hunt is a very interesting character. Hunt actually has quite a bit of depth as well. As I say, Zara J. Maas is not a bad writer, and this isn't a badly written book. I was actually very positively surprised by her prose. The woman can write. She can write good prose. This is really solidly written. My issues are just on a different level with this book. So this is basically our plot. No? So we have Bryce and we have Hunt, and it's more or less an enemy to lovers story, because how those things go. Now at first they absolutely hate each other, and then things develop, of course, into a different direction. And that's the plot. That's basically the plot. Plus, okay, we get a resolution then, of course, about the murders as well. And as I say, she is a very good writer. She has some really impactful scenes, like we get the scene when this murder happens, and I can tell you it hits very hard. It hits really hard. And there are a couple of other really, really hard-hitting scenes in this book. So yeah, as I say, I had an okay time with this book. It wasn't that I DNF'd it, or that I had this feeling, ugh, nah, I don't want to read on anymore. Overall, as I say, good, solid, yeah, entertaining fantasy fare, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you like books that are more on the entertaining side and that give you, how shall I say, yeah, overall good vibes, that are centered on romance, and have a little bit of mysteries thrown in, then you will probably have an absolute excellent time with this book. Okay, now to the spoiler section. So if you haven't read the book yet and you do not like spoilers, then I have to say goodbye to you. Thank you for watching up to this point, because we're going full in. And I also will spoil the ending, because I don't know how to otherwise describe my problems with the book without talking about the ending, at least in parts about the ending. So, okay, spoiler part. What didn't work for me with this book? One thing is, I don't think that this book is actually adult fantasy. The protagonists all appeared very young to me, not just age-wise, but more from how they react, what their problems are, how they relate to the world. We're really looking at a bunch of 20-somethings who in parts really have some very juvenile reactions. Bryce, especially in some respects, I had phases where, yeah, I don't know. I pity her on the one hand, because I sometimes thought, yeah, if this is how the younger generation is feeling, then this is really sad. But also I had other moments where I really was, could somebody sit her down and tell her, you know what? This problem doesn't exist. You're making a problem out of nothing. So yeah, it felt in its, mostly in its relations and in its reactions, a little bit too juvenile for me. And I personally would not categorize it as adult fantasy, because adult fantasy doesn't just mean that you have young protagonists with, and in this case we get quite a bit of this, very explicit sexual content, but it also means that your protagonists, at least over the span of the book perhaps, gain a more mature outlook on the world. And that never happens here. So I would say, Sarah, I don't know if you fully understood the assignment here, because just writing your YA formula and then we sprinkle a little bit of explicit scenes over this is not adult fantasy. Sorry. So that was one thing that wasn't working for me. The sex scenes, sure, why not? I mean, I'm relatively laid back about stuff like this. I don't necessarily need it. In this case, like in most things of this nature, they're very cliche in parts. Nothing really, how shall I say, earth-shattering in the sense of that Sarah J. Maas reinvents the romance genre here. No, it's very run-of-the-mill, and as I say, in parts quite cliche. So yeah, but also then again, as I would argue, quite, yeah, YA in a way. While we have some very explicit scenes, nothing actually really ever happens. No, there's a lot of build up, and then I don't know, we're on the sofa, we're on the carpet, wherever we are, but it never ever happens type of scenarios. And that gets a bit stale after a while as well. So as I say, it really didn't do anything for me majorly. My main objection, apart from the characters being very young, or yeah, the whole kind, like as I say, not sexy time thing, my main problem with Bryce is that we have a scene, I think she's talking to her half-brother, and she's very much the party girl, and she uses the partying, the alcohol, the drugs, and the sex to numb the grief about her friend. And I mean, that's an understandable scenario, but her half-brother at some stage says to her, why are you doing this? No? And also, why do you make yourself appear so dumb? Because you seem to be quite intelligent. And her answer is that she says, I don't want men to know that I'm actually an intelligent woman, so I make myself appear dumb. And I was like, no, please, no. This is written 2022, and in this case, even a female writer still telling young women that you can't appear too intelligent because men don't like that. And this is where the book totally lost me. This is where the book really left this not so good aftertaste for me, because I don't think that this is a message I want necessarily out there in this day and age, especially when it comes from a female writer. I found that personally very, very disappointing. And yeah, I might have been able to rationalize other aspects of the book away. No, like, as I say, not that there isn't so much in-depth, shall I say, exploration of themes. But that point, for me, that was the cruncher. It was really that I thought, no, I don't need that. It would also have been nice if we would have gotten a little bit, perhaps, more inner development of Bryce, especially. I don't know. It's not like a coming of age story where the character starts out at one point and then it develops and they gain some type of self-insight or whatever. That never really fully seems to happen for Bryce. And I found that also a little bit regrettable, especially when it comes to the ending. We have our two protagonists circling each other for, I don't know, 700 pages before they finally kind of like come to the realization, oh yeah, we actually do love each other, and maybe that could work out into something. After perhaps 800 pages, where finally both in the same room, in the same bed, and the door's closed, and you get this feeling, okay, great, now we're there. And what happens? The phone rings. It's her mother. And at this page, I could really have strangled her. She gets out of the bed to answer the phone, and I was like, no. I mean, what is this about? Yeah, I don't get it. Maybe it's an age thing. So there you have it. Lots that was okay, and as I say, it probably can be a totally enjoyable book for other readers. For me, in parts, not so much, but sure. I won't pick up the second volume that's out already. I think my excursion into the world of Sarah J. Maas was short, partly okay and enjoyable, but not to be repeated. Okay, thank you for watching. Happy reading and all the best.